All right, Carol, come on. All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's start this party going. Welcome to Lake Superior Interfaith Community Church. My name is Sue, and I'm the new president, so I will be presiding now. At this time, I'd like to read our statement of intent. Yeah, we'll get to that in just a second. Statement of intent. We are fortunate to have a variety of speakers for Sunday services. By using guest speakers, we gain wisdom from all those who share. This is a church where we can worship the God of our own understanding, a place to experience joy and be uplifted, a place where we can gain strength and inspiration to share with all we meet throughout the week. We invite you to join us in this celebration of life, to nourish your spirit and to enjoy the company of kindred souls. And speaking of kindred souls, let's all get up and sing our opening hymn, which is Let There Be Peace on Earth. Yes. And Jean's going to give us our little invocation.
Good morning. So this is the beginning of a new church here with Sue as our president. So I thought it was appropriate to read a blessing for our church. This is God's home. May we come here not only to find out about God, but to find God. May there be beauty in this place, but especially may it be a place where men and women become aware of the beauty in themselves. May this be a place of worship. May this be a place of instruction. May this be a place of singing. May this be a place of prayer. But for us who worship and take instruction and sing and pray, may this always be a place of inner stillness where we may listen and hear when God speaks. May whoever ministers here minister in love. May whoever teaches here teach truth. May whoever serves here serve pleasantly. May everyone come into this house in expectation and go with thanksgiving, and may anyone who comes needing help go feeling blessed. May this be such a house that Jesus Christ or any stranger, even one of the least, would feel in it that he was with friends. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. And so,
there we go.
yes.
Thank you. And now we're going to sing our next hymn, which is 206. What is it again? This is my son. This is my song. right. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks again for coming. At this point, I want to make some announcements. Our speaker today is Jean Kwako and friends. And so she's going to talk to us about the history of our church. Carolyn has been talking about how we started in 2013 as a spiritualist church, and I'm sure Jean has a whole bunch of other ideas of things she wants to bring up as well. So she's going to be our speaker today, along with friends. And then if anybody has any questions, I'm sure you'll be able to answer some of those, maybe either up here, or if we run out of time, we'll do it downstairs. A couple of other announcements. Number one, these lovely little envelopes, it says cash donation on them. For a lot of people, if you have made a cash donation and wish it to become part of your membership dues, that's what you can use this envelope for. Now you can, if you want to, put your check in one of these, but if on your check you just write for membership, go towards membership or something along that line, you don't need to use the envelope. So if you want to get a little bit of, if you want to pay your membership dues throughout the year, just like, a dollar here, a dollar there, whatever, and you're making a cash donation, you can use the envelope, okay? And for those of you who are making a donation and would like to become a member, we just need some information from you, like a phone number or an email address, and you can always talk to one of the board members who will be able to help you fill out a form and become a member. So that's the pretty envelopes in the pews. Let's see. We want to acknowledge Carol's healing. Thank you, Carol, for being able to do the piano thing, even with a sore arm still. But she's doing quite well, so we're really proud of her for that. And you guys got to remember, she comes in at 9:30, and she's here doing work for at least a good hour before we start. So let's give her a little hand. Yeah. And speaking of Carol, Carol is our vice president. I am the president, Sue Brewer, and Jean Kwako is going to be on the board. Debbie, guitar? Oh, guitar. Okay, Debbie Guitar is also on the board. Who's missing? Oh, Barbara With is traveling, and she's on our board. So, and then there are people around who have been on the board a number of times. So if you need to ask any questions about our church, let them know. Does anyone else have any other announcements they'd like to make? Don't forget to join us for lunch after church. We always have a potluck lunch. Bring along, if you want to come and bring along a dish to share, that's always great. But that is our communion. We get a chance to share a meal and share our feelings and ideas. So join us after church for our lunch. Now, at this point, I'd like to read our principles. It's on the white card, on the opposite side of our songs. And this is what we believe. We'll read them together. We believe God is an eternal source and creator of all and is present in everything. Our eternal soul, endowed with free will, grows through many lifetimes. Communication occurs between the physical and spiritual worlds. Prayer and meditation strengthen our connection to the divine. All healing comes from Source. Seeking this for ourselves and compassion for others suffering is the highest priority. Because we are all one, what we do unto others, we do unto ourselves. The choice of love is always open for every soul. Living these principles leads us to grow in divine love. Now at this time, I'd like to remind us of our healing bowl. Our healing bowl gets filled up with notes for people who we need our prayers. There are a lot of people out there who need our prayers whose names are not physically in the bowl. However, our intentions are in that bowl. If you have an intention for someone who needs healing, intention will get it to the bowl, and the bowl will work its magic and be part of the healing process. Are there any prayers that we need for people that you'd like to bring up? Anybody have some prayers today? Well, I have one. Marky Mark, thank you for coming. We are so glad you're here, but we are working on praying hard for your continued recovery. Yeah. Anyone else?
First, well, hey there, Walter. I'm just so proud of this place. We're doing so very, very well. It's really, it's really quite awesome. So thank you all for coming and doing this and providing peace on a regular basis. So, ooh, I'm just going to say that my parents are staying here this winter. They're both 92. So and they're like awesome. They're doing very well, but they're 92. And now I'm wearing a little bit more jewelry. Thank you, Mom. So she's kind of with me every day when I'm doing this. But anyway, Marge and Dick Whitney, if you want to think of them in a good way, I would appreciate it, because, it's cold and it's dark. Liking it. They would usually be in Florida. So, and then I'll just say other people like Jan Gagne, who has been a person of this church for a long time. And well, did we mention Lita, the lovely Lita? And so that's all. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Just remember that those of us that we think about and know that need our prayers will get those prayers, whether we say them out loud or not. So at this time, I'd like to have Carol, our lovely Carol, play In the Silence. And after In the Silence, we will have a moment of silence. And then Carolyn will do the healing meditation. 74 brings a song. And now Carolyn will come up and do our healing meditation.
Notice your breath. Notice your body. Maybe starting with your top of your head, to your eyelids, to your jaw, back of your neck, maybe a little straighter and relaxed, shoulders, elbows, wrists, hands, belly, dropping, dropping, dropping into the earth, surrendering to gravity, softening. Base of your spine and down into our powerful hip joints. The sense of opening, softening, down our legs to our knees, dropping down to our ankles, the arch, our toes. Noticing your next breath, filling, opening and widening between our cells. Maybe shifting just a little bit as you find your gravity, shifting a bit with your muscles softening. Toes, and then dropping down into the earth. Through layers of all the ways our earth is made. Rock and plasma and water and soft places, hard places, mysterious places, down to the center of the earth, or heading that way as far as your energy and you can supply. Feeling the amazing integrity of having this human form upon the surface of the earth that extends energetically in all directions into the earth, out from our heart, as if our arms were outreached and love flowing from our heart. Horizontally, it's flowing in all directions. However, notice the horizontal as we love this planet, as we love humanity, as we're humbled and blessed by the opportunity to have this physical form that holds us, gives us a spark of God to be here now with each other and with nature and with our solar system and with our cosmos. That's our body, holding our spirit, holding a piece of our soul here. The enormity of it, the sacredness of it, the joy, the blessedness, and indeed the angst. It's all here. And notice that we can imagine in some way timelessness in this body, in this life, 2024, and yet we stand on the shoulders, as we say, or maybe a better way is we're part of the vortex of a life force that holds all of our past and in some way all of our future, because we're in a timeless, infinite universe, which cosmos, I don't understand, but we don't have to, and you'll all have your own intuitive sensation of that, most likely. broken people, here we are, luminous beings on the adventure of a lifetime. So beautiful, so profound, and all of our history is here. Our history as a soul. And we are in this profoundly precious, beloved, shining church. A church which is more than a building. A church which is even more than a community, of which we are both, and we are beloved, our building, our land, our self. And yet, all of our ancestors, our personal ancestors, and our spiritual ancestors are here. We have great teachers in our lives, each of us to have found our way here. We've had spiritual teachers, they're here. It's timeless, it's seamless, it's unbelievably, intuitively unspeakable for our language. And here we are at what was the spiritualist church, first spiritualist church of Duluth, and became Lake Superior Interfaith Community Church. And all of our ancestors are here with us, actually always. And today we are calling them forth with our attention, with our intention, both, to abide with us as we listen to some stories, some history. May our hearts swell in gratitude and all the mix of feelings that each of you, of course, will have, from grief and loss to joy and trust, and the Christ consciousness lighting our way. And we're going. We've chosen to go back to 1913, when a woman, not a man, a woman, had the boldness and the commitment and the vision and the capacity. Bessie Magnuson is here with us. Let's imagine that. And then it goes to our beloved Rev for decades and decades. And we're here, all of us, in our heart, mind, in our energetic presence, we're all connected. We are so grateful. We are many things. We come for healing. We come for connection. Connection to God. The intake and the outtake, the in-breath and the out-breath, the in-breath of spirit, love, light, all that allness is, and our out-breath of prayer, where we learn to embody a prayer and give it over. And breathe in spirit. Now, moving back to this day in our still linear life, our linear life that says this is the beginning of a weather change and a calendar change and a time change and a change in the 2-year cycles of our precious, beloved, amazing, sturdy little church. And we are each a light. Feel our light. And our gratitude. And come back to this space. Blessed be. And now, people, Jean and friends. Jean and I have been planning, talking, texting, remembering things. I've taken copious notes in the way that only I can read them. And I've absorbed stories. And I've been in touch with about 8 other people that have experience. And in one way or the other, they didn't feel they were right to come today. But that's okay because we have many friends. How about these friends in spirit? And how about you sitting in this room that also have memories, some of you, of these early times? And so that's the genesis of this, except that for me, I started to look at Bessie's picture downstairs. And of course, we have our history wall, which I realize is a more accurate term than presidents, because each president embodies a whole 2 years of life here. And I've talked to many new people as they've come to the church, standing in this little entry area here with the quilt on one side. And it's stitched, somewhere back 100 years ago or less, but from a different era. And I've shown the wall of photographs to many people. And when I say many, I'm probably exaggerating, but probably 10 or 12 in 2 years. But a lot of them young people who are absolutely entranced to hear the little bit I can tell them. So here we are at the beginning of a beautiful new cycle of 2 years. And Sue is going to lead us so wonderfully. And she has a lot of experience. And Jean and Jerry and Walter, who came, are our oldest roots. And so we're going to turn the podium over to Jean, and she's going to talk to us about all this. Blessed be.
Thanks. Well, I can't tell you much about Bessie, and I don't know if Walter met Bessie or not before she died, but she's the one that started this community, and it was started in a house on 6th Street going up to right by St. Mary's and in that area. 5th Street, excuse me. 6th Avenue East of 5th Street. Okay, yeah. And it was a home, I believe. I don't think it was, yeah. And it was growing. Bess had 2 daughters, Frances, and I can't remember the other one's name. They were about 3 years apart. Frances did the choir, and her sister helped do the lunches. And there must have reached a point where the house was small, and they needed to move on, and Bess was not well. And in the meantime, the Rev was born. He was born in England. They went over into Canada, and he was raised on Vancouver Island. His mother worked in a a hotel, and when he had a brother, and when he was real young, he was 3, 4, or 5, not easy to take care of when you're running a hotel. So she put him up in a Catholic convent boarding school on Vancouver Island. And he actually stayed there. He told me once that got on vacation once in his lifetime. He stayed there until he graduated from high school. So he was raised a Catholic, but he was never baptized a Catholic. And I remember the story of him telling me that the nuns always told him he was going to hell because he was not baptized. So when he was 18, he was tired of it, and they wanted him to stay and become a priest and get baptized, but no, he decided he knew he was quite psychic by this time. I'm sure he was born very, very psychic, because he was, and he wanted to pursue it. And so in Vancouver, on Vancouver Island, he met a spiritualist minister who then trained him, and he was trained for a long time. I would say probably 4 years, 5 years, to become a spiritual minister. So he was very well trained, and he used all of his abilities to the best of. He was good. And in the meantime, he had gotten married. He had been, after he got out of the monastery, he had also worked as an aide in a hospital for a period of time, and that's where he met Mary, his wife. She had been in a convent. She was from Ireland. She'd been in a convent in Vancouver Island, and she got TB, and so they kicked her out of the convent, and her parents didn't want her back in Ireland. So she also ended up in the hospital working as an aide, and they met and they got married, and they had Willie, a little boy. And I think Willie was about 5 years old when he died of TB. Mary had TB, and it was never cleared up, so both Mary and Willie died of TB. And then the Rev started his journey of spiritualism and got involved with the minister. And in those days, a spiritualist, in fact, they might still go all over the country and preach. And, it kind of reminds me of going on horseback to your different places to minister. And he came to the States, and he was in Texas. And it was that time that Bessie she was sick. And so they happened to call this church in Texas. I'm sure they knew that the Rev was there, because I'm sure news traveled. There weren't that many spiritualist churches, but I'm sure the news traveled that there was a new minister looking around and, checking out the different churches. And so Bessie called that church and asked if the Rev would come to Duluth and just look it over and see what he thought. And the Rev he listened to what Spirit told him, and Spirit obviously told him, pack your bags, you're going to Duluth. And so without any thought, he just got on his horse. It was like getting on your horse and coming to Duluth. He had no idea what it was going to be like. He just came. And he liked Bessie, and Bessie liked him, and she invited him to stay. And so he stayed. This church had not been built. It hadn't even been thought about yet. And I don't know if Bessie was in this church after it was built. Do you know, Walt? Yeah, I don't think she was. I think she died before the church was built. But they had a contractor that went to the church, and I can't think of his last name. But anyway, he helped design the church. They got the property. they sold the other place on Fifth Street, and they built this church. And the Rev lived downstairs. He lived downstairs until he married the organist. She was an older woman. She was probably 30 years older than he was. She had grown children, and he married her. The kids, her children were very upset. And then the Rev took care of her until she died, and so they were very happy that they did get married, because he took care of her, and he was a very good caretaker. And then, so he had a house to live in. After he married her, he moved into their home. And I met the Rev in the 80s. And I knew when we moved to Duluth, I knew I had met a girl who had come to this church for readings. She did not come to the church on a regular basis, but every month they would have what they called a Ladies' Aid Day, and they'd advertise it, and people from all over, I know the range would come down, and all the people that wanted a reading, wanted to find out about their loved ones that had died or had issues or were, in that bent, would come to this church, and for $5, they would come up here, and the Rev would give them probably a 5 or however long reading, and they were very satisfied. And this happened every month, and then they'd go downstairs and they'd have lunch. And so Jerry and I had been in Duluth. We had moved once, so we had been in town for about 7 years when, I don't know, something was going on in my life, and I was talking to this Mary, and she had come to the Rev for readings, and we decided that we were going to have a reading. And there was a lady that lived in Park Point, and I don't know what her name was, but she also did readings. And so Mary called her, and she couldn't do a reading, but she said the Rev was going to be doing his monthly Ladies' Aid, at the church, and so just to come to the church. And so that was my introduction, was coming up here and having a reading. And so then that helped Jerry and I to decide that we were going to come and see what the church was like. And I remember when we walked downstairs, we were walking the door, and the Rev happened to be standing in the door looking out to see who was there, and he saw us, and he just perked up and introduced himself. He was a very, very pleasant, nice guy, and really glad that we were there. Jill Downs was here, Audrey Fisher was here, Helga Reagan had been here for a long time, Joan Arthur, and so a lot of these women, and I already knew Jill Downs and Audrey Fisher, so it was I walked in the door and I felt like I knew I was home. And then Rev gave all of his talks. No, he never studied what he was going to talk about. It always came from Spirit. It was always something that every one of us were able to get something out of. He gave readings during a period in the church, during the service, and often he would give a reading to everybody. And there were often 100 people here, and he would just go down the aisle and up and back and forth and give readings to everybody. And the readings were always relevant, and you always wondered, how did he know all that, And we did a lot of singing. Francis was a good director, and we sang a lot, and it was really wonderful. Well, anyway, the Rev decided that he would have meditation classes again. And so Jerry and I added our names, and so we were invited to his meditation class, along with Keithers, Paula and Steve Keither. They had just started at the church too. And so they were in the group, and then there was a dentist, and I can't remember his name, but no, not him. This is a dentist that he invented a product for dentistry, and he made a lot of money from it, and that came from one of our little on Friday night meditation classes. I was blown away. I had absolutely no idea what the classes were like. He locked the door at 7 o'clock, it'd be at his house, and you all sat in a circle in the dark, and there was music played, and you were just to sit there and get whatever you got, and he expected you to say and to get something. I mean, you could not say to him that, no, I didn't get anything. So it was, that was exciting and kind of scary, but you got used to it, and it was really, it was a lot of fun. And that was my introduction to the Rev. He and I became really, really, really good friends. My dad had died when I was 3, and he was like a father to me. And when he retired and left Duluth, he went to Bellingham, and he would come back here for Easter and for the 4th of July, and he'd stay with Cheryl and Carter Johnson at their place for a week, and then at Easter he came to our place for a week, and during that time I would call around and get people to come, and he'd give them readings. So there was always at least, I think, 40 and 50 people that came during that time to have readings. And we went to Bellingham every year to visit the Rev. We took him to Europe once with Jerry's mother, which was a lot of fun. Very interesting. And yeah. Do you want to say anything? Would you like to say anything, Walt? Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
I wasn't going to say anything. And then yesterday I was sitting out on my deck and I had this root ball. Oh. I was sitting out yesterday on the deck and I was looking at this root ball. And all of a sudden I thought, no, I've got some things to say. Because in a way, this just represents all kinds of things. Besides the fact that a tree or something like this is represented in the Bible, meaning some spiritual growth. But I was looking at this and I was thinking, you know, this thick part here looks like the Rev and what he taught. And because he taught true things, that gives us access to heaven. And in heaven, everything is shared and everyone cares for everything else. So it's like people share their knowledge, they share their love, their enthusiasm, everything. As opposed to the other end of things where, no, it's all about them. And they don't have this kind of a tremendous root development into all kinds of different things. Because you could look at these as being knowledges and experiences that we learn in life. And then you can look at this as being your concept of God. But actually then it's really like this, isn't it? And our concept of God then depends on what grows from this. The Rev spoke out of the Bible. And I must say, tooting my own horn, if I can, he taught about Swedenborg. Not many other people connected with him was on that level. And I noticed the books that were here about Swedenborg in the library have disappeared. But spiritualism began with Swedenborg, because before that, people just had their mind and they didn't think of any kind of an inner sense, an inner mind. And our inner mind is our motives, our thoughts about that justify all those motives. And so we can, depending upon our concept of God, we would we're going to go someplace. We all live forever. I've had out-of-body experiences. I know we live after we die. So it's like, what do we accept as authority? And I remember going up there and he'd be reading the Bible. And I remember some of you probably remember he would be up here giving his things and then he'd say, huh? Oh, okay. Because in his mind, the heavenly realm, heavenly light shone in also. And he would see things and they were coming from a true source. They weren't coming from feelings or things like that. Those feelings can change all kinds of things, but truth. He was a really remarkable person. He told me about someone, the first time I saw him, that although he didn't say she was going to die, that's what happened. And it's like, oh, there's nothing spooky or satanic about this. I'm very thankful that he related that to me. And it kind of really cemented me into spiritualism and studying that. And I spent about 3 or 4 years studying it with him here, a couple of years up in Toronto with a medium up there that I knew. And I think we're all supposed to take and become a spiritualist, to tell you the truth, because it's connection with God. The one thing I saw that a lot of the churches, and I think failed, is that people want to go there and be told what to do. And that's never the people like that. But we're really meant to come to those conclusions within ourselves. And I don't want to talk too long here, but I would say that this is the Word of God. And even if you're just a literalist, and that's as far as you go in depth into it, you're going to be on a certain earthly level. But it's letting in that heavenly light and being open to that, praying to that then opens that realm up to your mind. And I'm so thankful for him for helping me, educating me and all that. And I've not always followed it correctly, but I'm very thankful for him, and I'm happy for the church here.
Yeah.
So I'm Laura, and I heard about the Rev in these readings. I went to, a Congregationalist church, which means you have a direct pipeline to God. That was the deal with the Congregationalists. But every sermon or every service started with some form of forgive us because I've sinned. Forgive me. And I was already extremely good at guilt and, a young person and, trying to figure myself out. So I heard about this church and these readings, and I'll tear up here. But I came and I sat in the pew, and Rev, he was always wearing, they forgot to mention, a white tux, like a dinner jacket, the white tuxedo version with a little black bow tie, very dapper, and just a kindly gentleman. And so I was sitting in the pew and never been here, and he said, "May I come to you, my dear?" I said, "Sure." And then he said, "Margaret sends her love and greetings," which was the name of my maternal grandmother. But I would never think of her as Margaret. I would think of her as Grandma Turnblom. So, boom. For a guilt-ridden, uncertain person to know that things continue on, ooh, nice relief there, and not having guilt as kind of a main course is, yes, we're always supposed to strive, but you do better when you're loved and you strive in love and you're guided with love rather than guilt. And so that was kind of that was a huge attraction for me. And I got to go to the meditation groups, which always, in every church service, there was always an element of meditation and healing, which, that's like the ultimate. We're just trying to connect. So I'm just grateful for the centering that this has provided me, and the peace. And the peace is palpable when you're walking the building, because we've been practicing it for a while. So I'm just very grateful, very, very grateful. And it's kind of remarkable that we've continued on with this church and these traditions without really having a minister. I mean, that's really, and we hear these variety of people who share their love and their experience. So thanks, Rev and Bessie and all of you hardworking people who made this nice building.
Hi. I too came in the 80s, the late 80s, and my experience with this church is that you're led to here, right? But one of the things when I came, so when people talk about the readings and when Red gave them, they were metaphorical, right? They weren't, oh, and on Tuesday at 2:00, you're going to get a job. It wasn't like that. And there was always that spiritual component of when I left, there was so much depth in what he said and so much love that it took me sometimes until the next Sunday to even understand what that message meant, because Rev was on such a different level, right? He was real. He didn't have to practice this. It was just who he was. Another little interesting tidbit about that wall, when Rev would get done speaking, or whoever was speaking would stand at that wall, and everyone would greet them at that wall. What I love too, you talk about traditions. Before we would come out and speak, we always met in that room, and there was always a prayer said. So when they came out and sat in the chairs, and those 4 chairs, right? So Rev sat in one, the president sat in the other. Usually the person who did the meditation sat in another chair. And I don't remember who usually sat, but they were filled. And when they came out of that room, I could feel that love that they had brought, and that prayer and that grounding that they had done. It came with them. And when they sat in those chairs, because for me, what drew me here was a turbulent time in my life, right? And I was looking for peace, and I was looking for grounding, and that's what they brought. That's what I got here. And that Bible always sat here, and it was always open, right? No matter what, it was here. And those are things I could count on, because no matter what was going on, that chaos outside of my life, when I came here, I could count on that spiritual component that I wasn't feeling outside of these walls. And I would walk in here and there'd be so much joy, so much singing, the Christmas programs, right? The choir, Helga taking the little ones downstairs and talking with them, and Rev never apologized for reading out of the Bible. He never apologized ever for who he was and what he said. He had a faith in himself, and he had a faith in God, and I remember that to this day. And then Paula Keither, right, being one of his mentees, I guess, just so many people's face grew out of this place. And I remember when he was going to leave, everyone was like, what's going to happen? This church is going to fold. And it didn't. People, and we found our way, and the church found their way, and there were good times and bad times, like there should be as growth happens, and now we're in another growth period, not just here, but our nation, the world, everything. There's growth and there's change, and it's scary, but coming here is like, oh, okay, I can do this, because there's a history here of that, of growth and pain and change and growth and joy. There's that history here in these walls. This is like, if the walls could speak, what would they tell us, right? So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's what the church gives us. It gives us that centering. When we come here, we get centered. And it's like the Bible is still sitting out there with the page open. He just picked phrases from the Bible. I mean, he just put his finger down and that's what he would read. It was never according to the church calendar, the way he read the Bible. And Paula Keither, she became a spiritualist minister. She went to Lilydale to be ordained. The Rev actually ordained her here when she came back from Lilydale, but she had to go to Lilydale for a period of time so that they could prove that she was actually a psychic. And she's in Arkansas. She gives readings. In fact, she just gave Carolyn a reading a couple of days ago. And she's just like the Rev. She follows what she gets from Spirit. And I've never knew a time when the Rev didn't listen to Spirit. He'd always ask Spirit. Everything that came to him from Spirit. It wasn't something that he thought of. So you could really trust in him on that. So anyway, that's about it.
Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Jean's story about meeting the Rev and coming here for the first time and knowing a few people when she got here, the same thing that happened to me when I came here. That wasn't as long ago, though. All right, so at this point, can we have somebody send around the baskets for the offering, please? Jerry. As soon as we get one more basket here, we'll be ready to go. All right, put that right in there. Perfect.
Perfect.
All right, give us a good prayer, Jerry.
And so, we are all together in the spirit of life and love and living. And we ask for the love and light that we each are to come together and feel the light and love and peace and joy that we all are, but we all are together in the oneness of the spirit of creation. And when we leave here, we will find that too. But I just thank you all for their spirits that we are together in light and love and peace and joy of living all together in our oneness of spirit. Amen, amen, amen.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, at this time, I know it's kind of running late, but let's all stand up and get ready for our circle. But before we start singing, let us stand and say our church affirmation. All right, so ready? We totally accept the belief that God is in charge of the affairs and direction of Lake Superior Interfaith Community Church. As our thoughts of trust and joyful anticipation join in harmony with the thoughts of all the members of this fellowship, we attract the right ministerial leadership and people to our spiritual community. And what are we? We are grateful. All right, let's, I'll say a quick invocation while you all gather up here in our circle. Or not invocation, benediction. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. And may God hold you in the palm of his or her hand. And let's sing, God be with you.
That affirmation started in the 90s. That's why we read that, because we didn't have any ministerial leadership. I mean, we did, but, so we started that affirmation in the 90s. That's why that's on our every Sunday, asking for the right ministerial leadership. Yeah, isn't that nice? Anyway, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, yeah.